Hi guys, welcome back to Brain Gist. There is something I've observed, and that's what I'll be talking about today. In the clinics, I've seen quite a lot of people who are taking anti-epileptic medications, as we used to call it. Now we call it anti-seizure medications, whereas they don't have epilepsy and they never really deserve to be on this medication in the first place. So it's a grievous mistake. This is what I want to address in this video. So I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. And in case you stumbling on the channel for the very first time, it's Brain Gist. It's where I give essential information about the brain and people learn how to navigate life better, even though they have neurological problems. So today my focus is on epilepsy. So, it's not all loss of consciousness, all falls, all collapses, all jerks or twitches or shakings that equal epilepsy. And I see quite a lot of mistakes, and some of them actually made by physicians for reasons I'm going to talk about in this video. And in some parts of the world, you just go to a medicine store or to, some other outlets or to some doctors who do not have enough experience or training to be able to make the right diagnosis and become a victim of taking these medications. Think about the stigma associated with wrong diagnosis of epilepsy. Think about the cost of these medications. Think about exposure to side effects. And of course, think about the restrictions that come with it. And think also about the fact that if such individuals are wrongly given this diagnosis of epilepsy, the original disease or disorder that they have is being ignored completely, and that would continue to fester. So there's a whole lot to gain when the diagnosis of epilepsy is properly made. So even experienced, doctors sometimes make mistakes. So how can we solve this problem? So the first thing to know is that it's not all loss of consciousness or so that is epilepsy. One of the phenomenons that can happen that are often mistaken for epilepsy is fainting, what we call syncope in medical parlance. And this happens sometimes when there's a sudden reduction in blood flow to the brain and such individuals fall to the ground. Hopefully I would be able to make a dedicated video to syncope or fainting in the near future. So I saw recently, I think within the last 1 to 2 weeks, a young lady in her early 20s who's been started on anti-epileptics, and what she had was simply a fainting spell. So some of the reasons why these things happen is when you actually probably, instead of going to a qualified physician, you go to some medicine stores, depending on what part of the world you are, and they just start your medication and say it's epilepsy. Or you go to some doctors who've not got adequate experience or training to be able to make the right diagnosis of epilepsy. And even sometimes it happens with neurologists. So either because of the very busy schedule that you've got many patients waiting and you couldn't really delve into the details of the history, because a lot relies on the history. So the patient needs to be able to give an accurate account of what really happened during the attacks from the very beginning till the end of the attacks and even afterwards. So if you're such an individual who's having some repeated attacks, so what's important is you ask some of your friends or colleagues or families who witnessed these events when they happen to make a video of you, all that happens during the attack from the beginning to the end, so they can show the doctors. It's something I often ask for. It's a very precious resource. So when the patients have described what they think happened to them, I ask them if they have videos of it, and that can give a very solid evidence that can help your doctor to make the right diagnosis. And also, if there are no videos, Sometimes the patient who suffers it, or the individual who suffers it, is unconscious during the event and therefore does not know all the details of what happened. So in such circumstances, what I say is for you to ask your friends who witnessed the event or your family to give you a detailed account of what happened from the beginning to the end. What were you doing? How did you behave during the attack? How long did it last? And everything. So you can actually document it, write it down in your diary, so that when you meet your doctor, you can give an accurate account. And sometimes the patients mislead the doctors because you think that everything the doctor asks you, it has to be yes. So your doctor wants you to give an accurate account. So if the doctor says that this happened or not, if you're not sure, say you're not sure whether it happened or not. So try to give the most accurate account possible to your doctor so that they don't give you a wrong diagnosis. And then the other thing you could do is get opinions. So, it doesn't have to be just one doctor. So one doctor has seen you. If you aren't sure, go to the second or third or even fourth doctor, get opinions. And that way you're less likely to be given a wrong diagnosis and a wrong treatment. So, again, the history is extremely important. And there are other tests that, we do to help to support the diagnosis, but unfortunately, some doctors misinterpret this, this tests. One of such is the brainwave recording, what we call electroencephalogram. The electroencephalogram, or the EEG of brain waves, can be abnormal, and yet the patient does not have epilepsy. And it could be normal, and yet the patient has epilepsy. So all of this have got intricacies. Hopefully I'll be able to do some videos on that also in the future. So the bottom line is, be careful. If you aren't sure, get second, third, fourth, fifth opinion. Wherever attacks are happening to you, try to get a detailed account of it from those who've witnessed you during the attacks if your consciousness is impaired during the attack. And write it down to make sure you give your doctor the most accurate information possible, and also get other opinions and get people who witnessed the events to take videos. And the last thing I'm going to say is that even as neurologists who see epilepsy patients, we're not always very certain, from the first encounter. So what we do is we don't rush into the diagnosis. There's no urgency. I would prefer to miss a diagnosis of epilepsy, for example, and allow somebody else to make the diagnosis, than to wrongly diagnose epilepsy and start people on medications that can potentially give them side effects. So we're not always sure. Sometimes we wait for additional evidence. We wait for, more events to happen so we can understand the nature of the event. So I do hope you learned something from this video. And if you did, consider, sharing, liking, making your comment, and of course, also think about subscribing to the channel so you can benefit from all future videos. Thank you for watching today, and I hope to see you again in my next videos. Goodbye and stay safe.